if anyone's part of a union, you understand how dire the situation can be. But yeah, we can talk around stuff, probably.
Do you want to talk about the strike and how it's affecting you?
Weirdly enough, the strike doesn't affect me that much. I live in Canada now. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I moved all over the world. I lived in LA for the last couple of years. During the pandemic, I moved back home. We have our UBCP union there, and so there's still productions going. They are just unable to hire the SAG portion of myself. So I'm torn in two pieces. But my Canadian side can work just fine.
So, is that why you moved back to Canada, or do you just like it there?
No, I moved back for a lot of reasons. My parents are getting old, and I think during the pandemic, there was a moment where I realized that they weren't like 30 anymore. I was 30, and they were not. And you know, in my head, they're always like, you know, they're 40-year-olds, like forever. And all of a sudden, they were 70, and you know, it just kind of like hit me one day as I was like in the middle of the lockdown, not doing anything, that I didn't have to be in LA anymore. So I went back home to be closer to my family. I have 2 nephews right now, and it's just really awesome being around family. You know, I spent most of my adult life running away from my family, only to realize how important they are. So I'm glad I got there.
So you have brothers and sisters?
I have 2 brothers, yeah.
Do you have a strong relationship with them and your niece? And do they live by you in Canada?
One of them lives really close to the other. I'm really good friends with my brother now. Really good friends. We all do jiu-jitsu together. So it's like our one activity. Having 2 nephews around, they try to do play dates often. So I actually see my brothers quite often. Growing up, we were not friends. Growing up, we actually had some of the craziest fights I've ever been in. If you have siblings that don't get along, you probably know how it goes, but let me tell you a story. Me and my older brother never got along growing up. In fact, I hated him. This is probably one of the craziest stories we have, but this was our last family trip together. We went to China for the first time. I was probably 18, and my brother was 19. We just weren't getting along, but you know, it was a family trip, so we were kind of just playing nice. And we were in our last leg of the trip in Beijing, and I was with my cousin in one room, my brothers had another room, and we're just going around like looking at each other's rooms, even though they all look the same. This is gonna get a little non-PG for a second. We go to the bathroom in my room. It's really clean. They have a sanitized strip over the toilet. Like, wow, they freshly sanitized this and they want you to know it. My brother, he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna take a shit. And I'm there, I'm like, well, I need to take one. Can you go to your room across the hallway and do your business there? And my brother would not. And I would not let him go here. Anyways, next thing you know, he's got his pants down, he's doing it in the tub. I'm punching him in the head while his pants are down. Hotel staff comes in, like security, mom, dad screaming, yelling, crying, and I locked myself in that room for 3 days. Because I refused to talk to him, refused to spend any time with them. I told my parents, like, you better kick him out of the house. Relationship. Anyways, on the flight back, it's, we just had our meal, it's quiet, lights are off. I'm ready to go to bed. I recline, and all of a sudden I just feel this jerk. And of course, my brother's sitting behind me, lights are off. He yells at the top of his lungs. He's like, you're supposed to ask before you recline in this chair. I'm like, it only goes back like 2 inches, don't ask. And of course, he pushes, I push back, he pushes, I push back. We break the seat. Stewardess are running out, like yelling. My parents are crying, screaming, and they eventually separate us. And then I did not talk to my brother for 2 years. after that, despite living in the same house. We've both matured since a little bit, and again, we're friends now, but it was some of the most tumultuous times of my life, hanging out with my brothers.
Y'all had some hardcore beef. Was he your older brother? Or
He was my older brother.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And we got into fights about the stupidest little things. I mean, if you have siblings, I'm sure you understand. It's not the thing, it's the principle of it all, and I don't know, almost none of it really matters at the end of the day. We've gotten into fights about like who gets the last strawberry before. Yeah.
Do you use your martial arts skills on him?
We were all martial artists, so we got really physical. But you know, the funny thing is, things were only bad before we really got good at martial arts. So in jiu-jitsu, they have a saying like, injuries happen usually with white belts, right? It's because you don't know what you're doing and you have to exert yourself and you're just throwing your energy everywhere. Our house has every door, every wall, every light has been broken at least once. And this is because we have 3 boys, same age, very physical. And as a martial artist, part of your journey is getting to the point where you realize that you don't need to use it anymore, and then all of your efforts go towards not using the skill set that you've spent years and years attaining. And you know, once we got to that point, it was fine. But until that point, we had something to prove. It was a big question mark who was going to win. It was all of these things that we didn't even know, so we had to find out. And so you get physical, you get into fights, you yell, you scream because the result mattered. But at a certain point, like the fight goes on in your head, and you already know the end. And if you know the end and you still need to prove it, then it's all coming from a place of ego. And usually by then you have the maturity to be like, well, I don't need that, so I'm gonna stop it here. So yeah. Anyways, we figured it out a little bit too late because our house is a mess.
Great life lesson. How long have you been practicing martial arts for? How long have you been doing it?
I've trained a variety of martial arts over my life. I did wushu for 10 years, which is like a performance-based martial art. I did Wing Chun for about 8. A lot of kickboxing in between. I'm currently pretty obsessed with jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu specifically, which is a sport you can do as an old man, which is what I am.
Have you always wanted to do acting, or was there other careers that you wanted to pursue before you got into this area?
Yeah, my first goal was to be a stunt performer. So I was a stuntman before I was doing motion capture work for Electronic Arts. I was doing just random fight sequences for fun as a martial artist. That was the natural progression. I happened to have an agent at the same time. They did not know that I could do martial arts. I told them one day, well, they asked me for like a little clip. I had a friend help me film this thing. I sent it to them, and they flipped out. They're like, "Why didn't you tell us you could do martial arts?" I'm like, "Well, it's on my resume." And like on my resume, there's a section at the bottom that says special skills, kung fu. And he's like, "We represent Asians. It's on everyone's resume, but no one's actually good at it." And at the time, I was like competing to be the best in the world. I was on the Canadian national team, and it was through that discovery that they took that little tape, they sent it around to a bunch of producers, and then within a month, I was the lead role in this Spike TV miniseries. I don't think that channel's around anymore for reasons. This was David Carradine's last project. If you don't know who David Carradine is, he played the original Kung Fu guy on the show called Kung Fu. He was Bill in Kill Bill, 1 and 2, and this was like one of his last projects. So being that he was in his 70s at the time, he couldn't do the action sequences. So they were looking for a Chinese Canadian who could speak English, who could act, who could do his own stunts, who was non-union, who could work in rural parts of China. And I was literally the only person that had all of those things. So by default, I got the job. And after that, everyone forgot that I could do stunts, and I just kept getting acting roles. And then, you know, it's one of those things that I just like every now and again I'll bust it out and people will be surprised. But yeah, I didn't always want to be an actor. In fact, it wasn't something that was on my radar at all until it happened. And even like while I was doing it for like years, it took me a while to even appreciate what an actor does. And now, you know, now I'm looking into writing and producing and directing. Like this is the first time where I truly value actors, is when I'm actively trying not to do it anymore.
So you're starting writing and producing. Are you working on anything at the moment?
Yeah, so I've produced 3 feature films now, and also to go back on the strike stuff. So what it means to be on strike for SAG actors right now is we're saying like, hey, this group of producers and studios that historically have been our employees or our employers are saying like we don't want to offer like these deals. As an independent producer, we're not beholden to that. Technically, we can still employ ethically and do all the things, and we can talk about those projects, just so we're clear. Some independent producers are doing even worse than the studios, some are doing better. You have all across the board here. But the strike is specifically against the studios and companies represented by the APTP, which is a lot of them, just not all. Just to clarify, not that it matters. But I've produced 3 independent feature films. It was great fun. I knew nothing, I still don't, but I learned a lot. I'm currently exploring the TV space. I have a half-hour comedy in development right now that I've been really enjoying putting together. So, you know, like certainly with the lack of productions happening right now due to the strikes, I've been able to just kind of sit down in a chair and not get up very often as I write this thing, which is really fun.
Did you act in your features films as well, or were you a director, or what was your role?
I was actor and producer on all 3 of them. I don't always need to act. In fact, I only usually act because they're like, well, we need an actor, you might as well do it because we'd have to find someone else. And that, you know, gives you a whole other set of problems. So it's just another thing to solve. But I do aspire to produce and direct when I don't have to act. I directed my first short film like 2 years ago. And there was something really nice about not acting. I'll say, as a performer, we have to care about how we look. When I was directing for the first time, I was moonlighting on another show that I was acting in, and so I wasn't sleeping for that week. And I remember feeling so terrible. And I show up on my own set, and I had this moment, I'm like, whoa, it doesn't matter how terrible this feels right now, no one's gonna see this on camera. And there's this burden of this weight that just got lifted off my shoulders, and it was replaced by the burden of responsibility that if the project didn't work out, it would be my fault. But I like that exchange. I think as a person, I don't like, you know, I don't want to wear makeup, I don't want to do my hair, I don't want to care about what I'm wearing or how I present myself. It's never been a thing that I've enjoyed. And you know, I look to all my actor friends, they're so good at it and they enjoy it. And for me, I have this pile of clothes and I'll wear whatever's on top. And so I think recognizing the difference in just like what we lean into, like it's very different. Like all my actor friends, they work out for aesthetic. For me, I don't like working out. I only work out because I'm competitive and I want to win at this, you know, thing that we're doing. And so I end up being in shape for different reasons. And so I think the purpose that I've gone into this industry is not conducive to me being an actor necessarily, but certainly as a producer and a director, I've found a better fit.
So that being said, you have acted on things and you've also done stunts. So what was your favorite stunt that you have ever did in a project?
Oh, I mean, that's an easy one. It was on the first project I ever did. It was called Kung Fu Killer. I've not seen it to this day. I probably won't watch it because it's bad. So I don't hold it against any of you to not watch it. Please don't. But the coolest stunt that I got to do was it was one long shot. Okay, so usually when you film a scene, you break it up, you do it a couple of times, and then they'll move the camera around, and then they'll do it again. But this one was a one take, so it was like a 5-6 minute sequence where we're in the middle of a battlefield, and I'm on one end, and I see my girlfriend at the other end, and I just see her like get knocked out. And it's a sequence of me running through the battlefield, and I fight like 6 guys on the way, and then I end up getting dragged into a mud pit by the last guy, and we have this brawl in the middle of this mud pit. It was raining at the time, that just happened to be that way. I lose both of my contacts, so I'm like blind because my eyesight's pretty poor. And at the end, I find this rock. It was a real rock. This could have been very dangerous because it was very slippery. And I pretend bash this guy's head in, where there's copious amounts of blood squirting into my face. And the reason why it is so memorable and my favorite thing is because one, insurance would never allow this to happen on a union set. This was not a union thing. It definitely should have been a fake rock because I could have slipped and that guy could have been dead, and that would have not been great for anybody. But I think it was great because nothing went wrong. And we did it twice, and it was super painful. But you know, I'm one of those guys that I like hard labor, and this actually felt like I was doing work, and I was tired, and I wanted to go home and take a shower, and that's never the case. So it was very gratifying for that reason.
So you didn't hurt him in that scene, but was there any projects or stunts that you were doing where you did end up hurting yourself or someone else?
I think coming from the stunt background, I'm very aware of safety. So, and I think the idea of what a stunt performer does is like, you know, like a daredevil. It's quite the opposite. As a stunt performer, your number one job is safety. Like that, by far, that is your number one priority, because if someone gets hurt, then your job's done. In fact, you get fired, your boss gets fired, like it's pretty bad. So your number one job is safety. I've only had one minor injury, and it was self-inflicted. I was doing this fall, and I probably should have been a little bit more careful, but I just kept landing in a push-up position, and after like 20 takes, my shoulder was just like feeling it, and so was my elbow, and so like for a while after, I was feeling a little sore, but nothing too serious, thankfully.
Okay, well, that is all of the questions that I have for you, so I'm going to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions that you would like to ask? Yes?
So this is a strike question.
Would you like the microphone?
Sure. So this is a strike question. When you dream, do you dream in first person or third person?
Oh, that's a very good question. First person. Wait, first person is when you are you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, first person. I play games in third person, that's right. Ah, I do enjoy third person games. I can't, you know what, weirdly enough, I can't play first player games because I get dizzy and then I have to puke and take a nap. Ah, that's so interesting that I dream in that way and I don't get dizzy. I guess I live that way and I don't get dizzy either. Okay.
That was a weird question, but I have a question off of that. When you walk, do you step with your right or your left foot first?
What? I think I could do either. I mean, probably right, but I think I've done both. Do you have a preference?
My right foot.
Always?
Always.
Can you do the left, or are you like Zoolander?
I think I might fall if I do my left first.
Do you even know the reference Zoolander?
No.
Zoolander, that was before your time. Zoolander is a Ben Stiller movie where he's a model and he can only turn left. He can't turn right. Wait, can you try stepping left? Actually? Come on, Ariana. That was pretty awesome. That was very stilted. Also, do you dream in first or third person?
I don't really dream that much, but
Or you just don't remember because you forget about it if you don't think about it right away?
Usually it's third person. One time I had a dream where I turned into a giant Lego figure and I was on the step, what's the step thing called?
Stairmaster?
Yeah, I was walking up the Stairmaster as a giant Lego.
Interesting.
But I was watching it happen, but I was the Lego.
Actually, here's another question. In your mind, do you imagine images or do you see words?
I can't see anything in my mind. I have aphantasia. So it's just black and like I can't see anything in there.
What? Nothing.
No.
Is that a Disney movie?
People spend their entire lives clearing their head of thought. You just meditate immediately.
I just it's like words come into my mouth. It's just words come in and then out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, what's that called?
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia. I've never heard of that. Wow.
Yeah, look it up. It's cool. Does anybody else have any questions? Would you like the microphone?
Sure.
Okay.
Strangers in the night. Who is it?
I have so many questions.
So how have you gotten your various roles?
You audition for, well, I'm in a fortunate place that I don't audition as much now, and I guess I'm in the process of being the person that will give people roles. But traditionally speaking, as an actor, you are you're a freelancer, right? So you have to interview for your jobs. So if let's say I'm a server and I want to work at a restaurant, I have to go and interview for that job. I'll do the job, it's a one-day contract, I get fired the next day, I'm then employed again, and then I have to go and interview for another job. I guess it's more like catering because they keep you on longer at a restaurant. But let's say you're building houses. I'm a contractor, and I'm like, yo, I can build you a house. If you give me this much, I'll build you a house. And they're like, well, we have all of these other people who say they can build houses for us to choose from. Why you? And you'll be like, because I can build this kind of house. That's exactly what you're looking for. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, we don't know you yet, but here's a little dollhouse that we need that's kind of like that style. Can you build this dollhouse for us? It's a lot cheaper than a regular house, but if you build a lot of dollhouses, at some point they'll trust you with a big human-sized house, right? And so I think that's kind of the journey. You just build all these little houses for ants. I'm in the Zoolander mindset right now. But you build all these tiny houses, and at some point you'll be known as a guy that can build really good little houses, and then at a certain point they're like, you know what? I think you're ready to build like a human house. And then you go and you do the human house. So for a lot of my career, it's just like building up your resume, working on these small actor roles, 1 to 5 lines, just getting experience on set, and then at some point you just kind of have the confidence to lead a show or a movie. And as an actor for the first part of your career, all you have to do is serve the story. In the later stages of your career, if you get to a certain point, your job is to sell the movie. Your job is to bring those magical moments that will be on a trailer, that will get people to sit in, or to get known as the person that puts on these great performances, so that people will come buy a ticket and see the show. So it's a very complicated industry that like one job kind of has to be like 4 by default. You can't just like go in and do one thing unless, I guess some people can, but it's hard to make a living if you're only if you're a one-trick pony.
Anybody else got questions? We have answers. Well, actually, he has answers. I can't answer anything about his life almost.
I don't know about that, David.
Yes.
We've got to know each other for the last day.
I'm very sorry for all of it, okay? I apologize.
So I have an off-the-wall question. How do you know the Hollywoods?
Hillywood, okay, if you guys haven't seen the Hillywood show, it's a high, we can't talk about it because they're an independent production, that is just two sisters and a bunch of their friends who make these very, very high production quality parody videos. So my favorite thing about conventions is that you get to meet other people as well. I was in Spain on the taxi over from the airport to the hotel. I was sharing a cab with these two little sisters who introduced themselves as Haley and Anna. I'm like, hello, my name is Osric. I'm an actor. What do you do? Oh, we make little home videos in our backyard. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, that's cool. Nice to see you in Spain. They gave me this business card. I looked them up when I got back, and I was just like blown away. The next day, I'm like, well, you completely undersold yourself. This, like, the stuff you make is better than a lot of TV shows that are out there. Like, the quality is impeccable. Like, you have an eye for this thing. When are you gonna do a parody about the show that I'm currently on? And they said, oh, we've been thinking about it for a while, and we just gotta wait for the inspiration to hit. And then later on, they're like, hey, there's this other show that you're not on. Would you like to do a parody of that with us? And I'm like, okay. Went over to Calhoun, Georgia, did the thing, it was really fun, and then I said, hey, when are you gonna do a parody of that show that I'm on, that I want to talk about? And eventually, they did one, and it was so well received, and a bunch of the actors from this show that I was on were in it as well. And then we did another one, and then more people that missed out on the first time around were like, we want to be the show that does their own parody, because why not? We're a weird enough show. We've been around for a while, we're out of ideas, and we're just going to do whatever is fun. And this seems like a fun idea. And so we did another one that was even crazier, and both of those are for you to enjoy on YouTube for free. But yeah, check it out. I met them in Spain very randomly, and we're good friends now. Anytime I'm in Vegas, I'll go see them. It's such a weird part of my life doing parody videos of things that I'm in.
Does anybody else have a question? Hands raised, hands raised. Oh, put your hand raised.
Yeah,
Let's do it. You have a ton of questions?
Let them loose, Will.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Give him like a hard math question or something, or give him like something that.
I'll have you know I'm really good at multiplication tables.
Canadian history for 500.
All right. All right, what do you got?
Do you have any favorite lines?
Favorite lines. Favorite lines. No, you know what? I don't watch most of the stuff that I'm in. Or I'll watch it once as homework, and I'll never watch it again, except for Kung Fu Killer, which I've never seen. But apart from that, I'll watch things once, and it's just so that I know what I did. I'll remember my memories of the day. I'll remember what my intentions were, and based off of the editing choices, the coverage, I'm kind of putting myself through film school. So I don't know if I have favorite lines, because I'm not watching myself for pleasure. It's quite the opposite. It is quite painful watching myself. And so I don't think I have favorite lines because of that. When I'm performing, I think about how I'm performing it. Ariana, do you like watching yourself?
I like watching myself. I like watching myself take backs to see what I can do better, and I like watching myself on a big screen, and that's about it.
That's good. That's a good amount. There is something about seeing anything on the big screen. You know what? When I directed that short film and we did the first screening on the big screen, I was more nervous doing that than performing on stage. Right? Like theater, film, it doesn't matter. There's something so vulnerable about, this thing that you put together. It was like, that was my performance. You spend months putting this thing together, and all of a sudden, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just gonna live or die on that screen. And I'm in the corner, just like holding my breath. I'm like, my face is not there, but I feel like it is, right? And I think that's probably the scariest thing for me. And I think I've enjoyed that the best. I don't know if you've ever done stand-up, but stand-up is another thing that terrifies me because I feel like you're getting judged on both your performance and your writing. So it's a double whammy, right? Whereas an actor, it's like, well, you know, like I didn't direct it, I didn't produce it, I didn't edit it. There's so many things that I didn't do, but like when you're up there, when you're the director, and it's your responsibility, it's like, yeah, if it was not fun, that was your fault, right? If I'm doing stand-up, if it's not funny, you're boring, right? Like there's so many things, like, or you wrote it really well, but your delivery was awful, or the opposite, one of the two. Like I just feel like I feel so much more vulnerable doing that stuff. So for me, you know, if I was doing stand-up, I'll fixate on delivery of that line. If I'm directing, I will have favorite lines because of it. I loved how that came together. I love the way this actor did that thing. My initial thought was this. They took it, they ran with it, they made it better, and then that gave me another idea that we did this, and like it felt like a very collaborative process. And getting to those like magical moments, I think is my favorite thing. So like, I think when I'm producing, when I'm directing, I will have favorite lines. But apart from that, as an actor, I do not. As an audience member, I do. Yeah. You're right.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about that stand-up. You got a favorite bit?
No, I talk about it like I've thought about doing it, and it's like, no, I've done it once because my friend really wanted to do stand-up and he wouldn't do it alone, so I just did it in solidarity, and I have no memory of it because I blacked out.
Okay, well, boy, I legitimately thought we were going to get a classic here.
No, I unfortunately no. But you know what? There's a lot of stand-up that is just telling stories, so I could probably do that. I can tell stories in funny ways, and I think in that sense, like everyone is doing a stand-up routine. I don't know. Most of you probably have a story that you've told numerous people, and like every time you tell it, it kind of shifts a little bit, and it's because you're editing. You're making a little bit more succinct, a little bit more concise, a little bit funnier, a little bit more sad, or whatever it is. Like we're always doing that anyways. But in terms of like sitting down, like writing out a routine, like there's something about that. I mean, I do want to do it at some point, but I'm not ready to black out right now.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll let you go back to sign autographs, take pictures with folks, work on your stand-up routine. We do have a stage here for you. So we'll let you go back and do that.
All right, thank you, David.
If you haven't gotten a photo with him yet, if you haven't gotten an autograph, go back there to the back corner there, meet him. Obviously, you just saw, he's very nice, very approachable. Thank you.
And thank you, David. And thank you, Ariane.
And this one right here, we're not done with, because who does she look like?
I have Anne Hathaway.
Yeah. So Anne Hathaway's little sister here is going to be right now, going right over there, and going to be turned into the most grotesque, disgusting zombie you've ever seen, thanks to Mr. Tyler Green. Woo!